Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Shem Shai by Hashem Wakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to my fellow laborers, the Akim that do this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so, to the confusion of faith brothers that are joined unto our ranks, to the hopefully let the Akwaf that's listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. This is a continuance of the Christian apologetics, glorify slave ownership and racism, a video that was put up by the elder Ariala, and now I'm profiling elder Yashawamba's video on the same subject. This epistle was to Vocab Malone and basically any other you so-called Edomite Christians and Calvinists. All right, this is that dark history of that you don't like to talk about. Like the elder said, they love to go into One West history. Now we're going to go into some Calvinist and Christian history. And I'm going to open with this scripture. This is the book of Luke, chapter 8, verse 17, and it reads, "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." Everything that you've done, all your wickedness, all your crimes are playing out now. And it's turned out that the internet is the enemy of Esau, because all his history is being broadcast now. All those things that he wanted to keep hidden for centuries. All right. But before we let this video play, I'm just going to read a little bit more out of this book, the Negro Question. All right, because the original video was done by a scholar, a book publisher, who was in the family line of Oliver Cromwell and Jonathan Edwards. Okay? He was in the family line of these people, man. And you have to remember, the people that were in Ireland in 1600 were so-called Negroes, man. And I'm going to prove to you through this documented history from a historian, and I'm just going to read one. There's many in here, but from Professor Boyd Dawkins. All right, this is I'm just going to profile him, a couple of his things, but here it is. These are all the eyewitnesses from the time period, but this is Professor Boyd Dawkins. All right, and it says, "Our earliest ancestors, bygone days," a lecture delivered in a public hall in Cawley, Manchester on January 8th, 1879. And he said, "The ancient Britons, Irish, Scots are short black people," pages 103, 107. "When they dug up the bodies, the Basque, that's what they found." All right, let's read another account on what he was saying here. And I'm going to put it up so you could screenshot it. Okay? Screenshot this information. Or you could just pause it and read it. Okay? You can just pause it and read it. I want to put it up what I'm about to read. Okay? It says, "Professor Boyd Dawkins, Professor of Geology, Manchester University, London, 1879. Our remote ancestry," pages 95 to 106. All right. "The original people of Britain, France, Spain, England were short black men about 5'6" in height. They were in England when our fathers, white English, invaded in 449 AD. Our fathers were a warlike people. By 607 had pushed the Basque into Wales, Cumberland, Westmore, the Highlands of Scotland and Devon." So, it wasn't until and Esau really came into power in the late 1300s. All right, just to make that clear, that's when they really came into power. All right, but Jake was still ruling after Rome had fallen for almost 1,000-year period. Okay, and their last stronghold was Portugal and Spain when the fall of Granada. That's when Esau got complete control over Europe once again. All right. But it says these black people boasted that they were the citizens of the Roman Empire, and they were. All right, because Rome fell, and the Israelites that were there rose up and took it over, man. All right, and the apostle Tahar just went into a series about the time period of those seven Roman emperors who were so-called Negroes, who were Jakes, man. And I'm forgetting the name of the time period, but he just went into that history. All right. So it says the black people boasted that they were citizens of Rome. The Welsh and ancient Britons were in possession before the Romans even came here. The Black Basque Britons have brought the knowledge of iron and bronze with them. The iron and bronze technology will be proven perfectly when we show the German tapestry. These people, and you can see the Moors and the so-called black Germans in the book Without Color, Nature Knows No Color Line. You have the family crest of Negroes with German names. All right, the flags and the evidence of the presence of these Negroes. All right, or if you want to call them niggers, the evidence of them are still all over Europe today. The statues, they couldn't destroy them all with so many. You had something called the Coburg Moor. They're everywhere, man. All right. It says these people were herdsmen and possessed short-horn ox, the horned sheep, the goat, the pig, and the horse. Evidence of their civilization can be seen all over the continent of Europe, as well as throughout the British Islands, extending as far as Germany and Switzerland, even France and Spain. These black people originated from Iberian Peninsula and are a fragment of the old Spanish population. And Iberian goes back to the Hebrew word Ibar, which means Hebrew. The true sons of the true Anglo-Saxons, sons of Isaac. All right? There's no such thing as the people who call themselves WASP are these very people he said that came in and took over. That's what Esau does. He's the biggest identity thief known to man. He goes into lands and he claims those lands and then labels himself the names of those lands. He called himself the Greeks. He calls himself Americans. He calls himself Germans. Wherever they go, that's what they do. All right. They took over Rome and called themselves Romans. All right. The original people, inhabitants of Greece and Rome were Japhetic, and Japhetic was a dark people. They were dark like Negroes. They were brown-skinned people. Okay. They weren't so-called white people. The relics that are left behind is evidence of that as well. It's funny how those relics are never used though when they start talking about Greek history. You have to dig to find them. All right. It says, these black people originated from Iberian Peninsula and are a fragment of the old Spanish population. They were in France, Spain, Ireland, Britain, and Scotland. One of the techniques it's like to employ was detailed in my research is to try to get close to the point of an event as I can. In this case, Professor Boyd was right there and he mentioned seeing the specimen of black Basques from different parts of Europe and states that if you laid them next to each other, you would not be able to tell one culture from another. So he was saying they were all over Europe. He was studying these black bodies that were all over Europe, man. Why is this not taught in the universities today? Okay? Why? All right? It said the purpose of this section of this book is to prove the beginning of historians in the 18th and 19th century had no problem describing blackness of early Europeans. Benjamin Franklin, Professor Boyd Dawkins, and Albert Churchward gave us eyewitness account of the world in their generation. All right? Dr. Albert Churchward's eyewitness account gives us the grim description of what happened to the black presence in Europe. We can tell you in a nutshell. Oliver Cromwell started a campaign to kill them all and send the ones that survived into slavery, including their offsprings, especially the offspring that was with so-called Caucasian women. All right? Because the worst type of nigga was one that looked like a white person. A male child who had a white mother who looked like his mother but had a Negro father. That was the worst type of nigger because he could infiltrate and blend in. All right. So when you talk, so when you these Irish people start talking about how they were sold into slavery too, no, they were selling the Irish into slavery who had black forefathers, so called black, that is. All right, because that's what Oliver Cromwell did. He was sending the Negroes out of Europe. All right, and the ones that he wasn't killing, he was sending into slavery, selling them to the Americas and to the islands. That's like the island of Montserrat. That's why they talk like when you go to Montserrat, the people on that island speak just like you if you would think you were in Ireland somewhere. And you can see those features that a lot of the Irish have in those Negroes. Okay? You can see those features. So yes, a lot of that's a lot of Irish people are running around today who definitely are descendants of so-called Negroes, man. Just like the Sicilians were spawned by the Moors, who were also Negroes, who were also Israelites. And they even show you that in the movie True Romance. You can see that clip of the Sicilians. You just go on YouTube and put in True Romance, it's Sicilians, and it'll show you that scene when I believe the actor is Dennis Hopper is talking to the other actor, Christopher Walken, who I believe is a Jake, by the way, about his nigger heritage. Right before the Sicilians got angry about it and they put him to death. All right, but the time gonna come when you Sicilians gonna cleave on to your Negro history. You gonna be glad. All right, that day will come. Okay, but I'm gonna read a little bit about what the men of Oliver Cromwell was doing. I'm gonna show you the insert from the book, and it's written in Old English, and I'm gonna read it. What it's saying, because they were looking for her money. All right, and here's the insert below. All right, it says, the editorial from that generation shows that they spoke and wrote differently, but you can discern the writing. In modern English, it says they took hot tongues and tortured this woman to make her confess where her money was. They burned the bottom of her feet and palms of her hands. And they were taking hot irons and burning her feet and her hands. Wow. It says, it is important that you remember these crimes are being done to black Irishmen, their women, and their children. Going backwards in history is like digging in the walls and seeing what the people do in the imagination of their minds. This is a part of the history of Europe that geneticist is missing, making the whole DNA and geneticist false and fabricated. That will cause his findings in our generation to make sense. Remember, the Irish were black in the 1600s. All right. So Oliver Cromwell, who this book publisher in the original video is talking about, and his family line was both Oliver Cromwell and Jonathan Edwards. So two mega devils. So let's hear a little bit about this founder of one of the founders of Calvinism. All right.
Edwards as a Slave Owner by Susan Stinson, April 5th of 2012. All right, it says the 18th century preacher, theologian Jonathan Edwards wrote on any paper he could find. All right, it says he made extensive notes on a version of the Bible with large line margins, writing alongside what was for him the direct words of God. He wrote on scraps from his daughter's lace making work. All right. So basically, he took a lot of notes. He wrote a lot of his thoughts down on paper. All right. So we're going to go down. It says, one thing saved in this way is a bill of sale from 1731 for the purchase of Jonathan Edwards of a Negro girl named Venus. All right. Edwards had an annual salary of only 200 pounds. He paid 80 pounds for Venus,
he wanted her bad.
14-year-old girl. Edwards traveled to Newport, Rhode Island to buy this girl who was roughly 14 years old. Okay. Kenneth Minkema, director of the Jonathan Edwards Center of Online Archive at Yale, has done gripping and thorough research on this moment and many others involving Edwards as a slave owner. Because the seller was a slave ship captain and the purchase took place in Newport at Seaport at the heart of the North American slave trade.
So these Christian church pastors and priests and etc. were in the business of human cargo. All right, and referring to them as property and stock, and not people. And these were your men of the Lord, man. These were your American Christians. All right, and they only wanted to conform and convert Negroes to Christianity to quell rebellions, and no other reason.
It was likely that Venus, all right, was African, which we know that those were Israelites. Okay. That the record of her purchase was saved because Jonathan Edwards cut it in 4 pieces and wrote sermons on the other side is a powerful physical image.
And that's some pretty condemning damn evidence, man, to write sermons on the back of receipts of an underage slave girl. When vocab and has so adamantly tried to say over and over again that GMS teaches rape and pedophilia, which is a lie. But the roots of his forefathers, founding forefathers, his religions, that's hardcore evidence that they did these things.
He cut it. He had a receipt and he basically wrote notes on the back of it. Okay. And vocab loves to go into the history of the One West and all of that. So we're gonna go into the history of Calvinism.
You don't like
which
that?
Is slavery, slaughter, rape, robbery, murder. Okay. It said both affect the medical. One side of a piece of paper can't exist without the other. Northern slavery was integral to the early history in the U.S. to the like and work of someone like Edwards. Widely recognized as a brilliant theologian, philosopher, writer in ways that are ubiquitous and underacknowledged as the backside of a page. Let's see. Slavery was on the increase in New England in the first half of the 18th century. In this indispensable book, Slavery in Connecticut Valley of Massachusetts, Robert Romer identifies 24 local ministers ordained in the 18th century or earlier who owned slaves. Okay, all of them owned slaves.
Mm-hmm.
It said the ministers were, of course, far from alone in.
That's the reason why they don't like the scripture that condemns them the most, because that proves who they are. All right, and the end games in the Bible, it clearly tells you right here in Revelation 13 and 10, because they all did own slaves, man. And it reads, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. So the sons and daughters of these men, of the Calvinists, they're going into captivity. All right? He that killeth with the sword, and they killed millions of us. Hundreds of millions of us. Between the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, they killed hundreds of millions of us, pushing this Christianity, still in America, and getting free labor to build it up. Because it's funny, too, how the Negroes didn't become lazy until they didn't want to work for free anymore. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So the saints are patiently waiting, the saints of the Lord are patiently waiting to put into slavery and kill with the sword those that did it to them. That is the balance that Christians do not want to talk about. The Lord is about balance. Revelation 18 and 6 said, give unto them double. Galatians 6 and 7 pretty much says that you're going to reap what you sow. All right? And the elites of these people have to go into slavery. Thus saith the Bible. That's why they're going to live and survive through these upcoming calamities that's coming to America. Okay? This is some close out with this. This is Psalms 148, and I'm going to start at verse 14. And it says, let them praise the name of Yahweh, for his name alone is excellent. His glory is above the earth and heaven. He exalted the horn of his people in the praise of all his saints, even the children of Israel. All people near unto him, praise ye the Lord. The Israelites are the only ones near unto him. Let them praise his name in a dance, and let them sing praises unto him with the timbrel and the harp. For Yahweh taketh pleasure in his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing aloud upon their beds. Let the high praises of power be in their mouth, and a two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen, and punishments upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and nobles and fetters of iron, to execute upon them the judgment written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye Yahweh. And this is what Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has to face at the end. This is why he doesn't want to be known as Edom. And this is why he does not want to face his judgment or speak about the prophecies on judgment. And there is a judgment upon slavery. And this is it. Call halal Yahweh B'Shem Abishai B'Hashem Rakak Wadash Wa Abad Babal.